Hello, everybody. This is Sandy with Gifted Travel Network, and I am super excited to be here with you today to talk about finding the right host agency. And that is really what we're talking about today, is focusing on finding the right host that's for you. So I hope that those of you who are here, I hope you have questions that get answered. That's my goal today, is to provide a lot of good content to talk about the importance of the host-IC relationship, to help you understand what to look for in a host, and if you find yourself in need of switching, then how to do that and do it effectively. Let me talk a little bit to begin with about what this webinar is not. This webinar is not just a commercial for Gifted Travel Network. It is a webinar to help you understand why now is the best time to switch if you need to switch. So when you are considering this, there's a lot of things to take into consideration, and that's what I want to talk about today. I want to talk about why now's the best time, why you need a host, and how hosts differ, how to find the right fit, and how the process actually works, and then answer your questions. So if you have questions today as we go through all this information, please feel free to put them in the comments. I am watching the comments, and we'll keep an eye on that. And then my colleague, Lisa Fletcher, is also keeping an eye on the comments, so she can answer as well. So hello, Stephanie. Thanks for joining us, and thanks for saying hi. So let me start by saying, even before we get into why now is the best time to switch, let me say, before we get into that what this is not about today is not about just a commercial for Gifted Travel Network. That's not what today is. I talked to a lot of different agents over the course of a week. And the reason I decided to do this webinar was because I kept hearing a lot of misinformation and myths from people, and wanted to make sure that people out there in the travel industry got the right information so that they knew, first and foremost, how to find a great host, and then also to know what it means to switch, because sometimes people think the process is different than it really is, and you need to be educated in order to be able to make the host decision. And then if the host decision is not working for you anymore, then you need to know what's involved with changing. So the reason that right now is the best time to switch is, unfortunately for a lot of you, your bookings have never been lower. You've never had a smaller book of business than you've had right now. And for many of you, you have spent, and wisely so, you've spent time taking stock of your business, where it is, what's working, what's not working, where there are opportunities. Maybe you're wanting to pivot in a new direction. And that's a super important thing to be aware of, because ideally there is a really strong match with your host agency and with you and your business. It's a super important relationship, because the reason I think that people need a host agency is people who are hosted make more money. And yes, that is even after the consideration of costs that you have to pay to a host. And I have found in my 18 years of experience in this industry that people who are with the right host are generally happier with their business than they are if they're out there on their own. This is an isolating enough job as it is, especially right now when we can't go anywhere, we can't work in an office. But for those of you who work from home, like many of us do on a regular basis, it's isolating already. And so you've added to that then that you don't have a community to engage with. And having a community around your host is a particular strength for most ICs. It gives them more access to more resources. They make more money. They and they get good ideas from other people that they interact with. Now, I've mentioned host several times here. What I'm actually talking about is let me clarify, I'm not talking about franchises today. Franchising is a completely different animal. completely. And so that's, you may be with a franchise and you may want to switch to a host, but I'm not talking about franchising at all, because that is a legal entity that is completely separate. So what I'm talking about today is purely host. So it's a great time to switch now, because essentially when you're moving your business from being affiliated with one host to being affiliated with another host, there are a lot of things to take into consideration. And the more bookings you have, typically that correlates with a longer cycle of being affiliated with two hosts. That's called dual hosting, and yes, you can do it. And no agency can prohibit you from being affiliated with another host. Now, a consortia can keep you from being affiliated with more than one consortia or more than one host under that consortia. But hosts can't say, nope, you can only do business with us. That's like Lowe's saying you can only buy your lumber construction company owner from us. You can't buy from Home Depot. They don't have the ability to do that. You are an independent contractor. You have your own business. So if you've got a lot of bookings, and a lot of you at this time would have had bookings out through next year, and a lot of them traveling this year, and you make the change, and we'll talk more about the process shortly, it would just mean a longer time frame for you to be able to do it. But one of the unique things about right now, not only is your book of business is probably smaller than it normally would be, but also a lot of your clients have future cruise credits or future travel credits with suppliers that you have booked them with. Generally, not in every case, but generally, a lot of those are transferable, whereas a booking is not typically transferred from one host agency to another. So the future cruise credit or the future travel credit sometimes can be moved from one host to another. And so that just makes things a little bit easier. So just be aware of that. And we'll get into a lot more details. I'll cover a lot more details about how all this works shortly. But before we get too deep into the weeds of the process, I want to talk about the why, because you should always start with the why with whatever you're doing. And in order to make a change, you first need to know what it is that you need, because making a change is not just flipping a switch. And it takes time to get acclimated. So let's talk about being clear about what it is that you need. The first thing that you need to do is, and this is a part of your business should be a part of your business on a regular basis, is you sit down and you look at what's working, what's not working, where am I struggling? And for a lot of people, when it comes to the host relationship, this is where this usually pops up. Money, commission split. It may be that the host that you're with has specific regulations about, or rules about when you can change. You have to be with them a certain amount of time, or maybe you have to be with them, achieve a certain sales level to move to a different commission level, and you feel like that's holding you back. For some people, they feel like there's no longer a match between the host area of focus and your own. We see this a lot. There's a lot of host agencies out there that are very cruise focused. And so we see this a lot with people who aren't cruise focused. Maybe their focus is Europe FIT. And so they want to focus on that, and they want to have relationships with those vendors and opportunities with those vendors and just have more support in that area. But if their host agency is focusing 90% on cruise, that can be a misfit. So that's another area where there's an issue. So you have to be really clear about what is it that you need, what's driving you to think about making this change. And so, I see, I'm looking at your questions. And so some of the stuff that you're asking about, I'm definitely going to get into later. Lisa, to answer your question, I'm definitely going to get into the details shortly, but I want to stay focused on why for just a few minutes. So what isn't working with your current host? What needs to be different? And is what you're asking for reasonable? So it might be that a lot of times I see people say, I'm not getting support from my current host agency. Well, what does that mean? If you say, I'm not getting support, what do you really mean by that? Detail it out. What is it that you're looking for? If you're new to this industry, a lot of people, when they say I'm not getting support, what they really mean is I don't have a new to the industry training program in with my host. And honestly, that's not a host job. A host job is to support experienced, skilled travel advisors. There are lots of hosts. Gift to Travel Network is one. There are lots of us who do have a new to the industry training program, but that's not something that should just come along with hosting. It's way too time intensive to just give to everybody who comes along. If you want to learn a new skill, a new trade, a new industry, that's something that you have to invest in. You have to invest in a training program. And so keep that in mind. The other thing that people oftentimes focus on is that they don't feel like they are getting the leads or the business from their host that they feel like they should. And I really want to caution you about this. There's two ways to build a travel business. You can build a travel business based on volume, where you just churn them and burn them and book them and move on. Or you can build a travel business based on service, where you really get to know your clients. You plan unique, customized itineraries for them. You are focused on what it is that they want to do, what are their dreams for this vacation, and you deliver those dreams in the form of a beautiful itinerary that's customized for them. If you get with a host and they have a leads program, you are going to be dealing with people who are looking for the cheapest price that they can possibly get on anything. They have no loyalty to you or to the agency that you're affiliated with. There's just no loyalty there at all. And they will cancel with you and rebook with somebody else to save $10. I've seen it happen many times. And so leads, yes, they are a great way to learn how to be a travel agent when you're first getting started. But long term, it's an exhaustive strategy to make a little bit of money. The closure rate, if you're interested in leads, I would encourage you to ask the host agency that you're talking to what their average close rate is on leads. And you'll probably hear a number somewhere between 5% and 10%. That's my problem with leads. You've wasted 90 to 95% of your time with quoting people because only 5 to 10% of them book. So just think about that. And it's really important to not have overblown expectations of a leads program. Another thing a lot of times people are looking for is a marketing platform that is going to just completely build their business. And that's not typically realistic either. Yes, there are some great host agencies with beautiful marketing programs. There are consortias like Gifted Travel Network. We're affiliated with Virtuoso. Virtuoso has beautiful marketing. That's all to supplement your marketing. So I guess the bottom line of what I'm trying to say here is no host agency in the world is going to fix any deficit with your business. So it's up to you to be clear about your ideal client and the kind of business that you are trying to build, what it is that you offer clients, your unique value proposition, so that you are bringing to the conversation a really strong understanding of this is what I need in a host agency. So be really clear about what it is that you need, what you need from a host before you start jumping in and doing your homework. Because you don't want to get into a situation where, okay, it's like trying on hats. All right, I'll try this one on for a while. I'm here within 6 months. No, that didn't work. I'm going to go try somebody else. When you do that, you're looking for a magic bullet, and there is no magic bullet out there. There's no one host agency that you can affiliate with that's just going to cure every problem in the world and suddenly make you successful. You have to do that. I think Gifted Travel Network is an amazing host agency, but we're not going to just fix your business and suddenly everything is going to be rosy. It's your business, and you have to drive that. So once you know what it is you need, then you need to do your homework and go out and figure out, okay, now I know what it is I'm looking for. I'm looking for an agency that has a more attractive commission split, or an agency that has a different consortia that's more in line with what I sell. Or maybe you're looking for a different community. Maybe the host agency that you're affiliated with, especially if there's any of you on the call who have gotten affiliated with a multi-level marketing or MLM organization, that's not typical of a host agency. Host agencies aren't about trying to get you to sign up your friends to be travel agents. And if you got into that by accident and now you're looking for a real host agency, there are lots of great ones out there. Maybe what you're looking for is a community that is collaborative and engaged, and not just focused on competition of, it's a dog eat dog world. So that's a couple of thoughts. The other thing that I see a lot of people who go out and look for, and sometimes they have trouble articulating this, is that they feel like, I've got this travel agent stuff down pat. I'm a great travel agent. I love my clients love me, but I'm not making enough money. And so what they're really looking for is a host agency and an agency that has more of an entrepreneurial focus, that is going to not just provide them with, hey, here's the latest update from this cruise line. Here's an update from this Caribbean island. Here's an update from this tour company. Here's an update from this airline, whatever the case might be. But that's actually going to provide training and education on business related or marketing related topics. So understanding all that, a great place to go to start your search is hostagencyreviews.com. So hostagencyreviews.com has, I think, every host agency out there listed, and there's a lot of them. And you can, at a glance, see some of the basics. So for instance, if you said, I am going to focus on luxury, or I already focus on luxury and I do FITs, and so I really feel like I need to be with Virtuoso, or maybe I feel like I need to be with Signature, then you can find host agencies that just meet that criteria. Maybe it's super important to you to be with a host agency that's geographically close to you. I don't think that should be a deciding factor. I think if you can find a host agency that is near you geographically, that's just a wonderful bonus. I don't think you should limit your search just because of geography. So there's that. But whatever it is that you're looking for, you can search for. But please don't stop there. You need to the next step is to actually talk to somebody with that agency, set up an appointment and have a conversation with them and ask them questions and get a feel for what it is that makes them different, and ask them, what sets you apart? Why are you different? Because all host agencies recognize, or should recognize, that none of us are perfect for every single person. At Gifted Travel Network, we're not perfect for everybody. We're not the right fit for everybody. There are other host agencies out there that are better fit for different people who have different interests. So you want to talk to the representatives of the agency, talk to people who are hosted with that agency, and ask them, so what is it that you like about this? You need to know, some of the things you need to know while you're looking at this is, can you keep your brand, or do you have to work under theirs? Because that's a big difference. If your ultimate goal is to have your brand, if I wanted to have Sandy's Travel Agency, then I need to make sure that I'm going to be hosted with an agency that allows me to do that. If I then have to go and use their brand, and then there's a few that once you reach a certain sales level, then you can have your own brand. Just be aware of those differences. And in addition, the other thing that you need to find out about when you're talking to them, when you're asking questions, ask them about the top vendors that they work with. Ask them who their top 10 vendors are. Ask them what sets them apart in the marketplace. Ask them also what they see as the future of their agency. One of the things you'll quickly find out is that there are really small host agencies, a lot of mom and pop, and I mean that literally. There's a lot of host agencies that are husbands and wives who are operating them, who have 3 or 4 or 5 people. Some people, that is the perfect situation for them. Then there are host agencies that have 10,000 members, and anybody can join. There's no criteria. As long as you can pay the fee, you can join. So it is really important to find your fit. And then there's lots in the middle. I mean, at Gifted Travel Network, we have 300. So we're kind of a small, medium kind of host agency. So you need to know that. Another thing that you need to ask them about is how they handle, or are they all host agent, or are they brick and mortar, or employee agents and ICs? Because agencies who are a mix of both, they may handle things differently. So I hear a lot of times there are people from coming with agencies that are blended. They feel like the employees got more opportunities than the ICs did. And so that can be an issue or a source of tension for people. And also, if you are affiliated with an agency like Gifted Travel Network is, one of the things that we do, because we're all ICs, is we advocate all the time with our partners, tour companies, cruise lines, destination companies, all those different companies, those vendors that we work with. We advocate for you need better resources. You need to be able to support ICs. Yes, we're in North Carolina and you serve North Carolina, but how are you going to support our agents who are in California or Washington State or Texas or wherever? How are you going to support them? And we push and advocate for those kinds of resources. So I think that one of the things that's important that I hope you're getting is having a conversation with people. If one of the pain points that you've been feeling is, I don't feel like I get good support with my BDM because I'm not in the same place, it could be the BDM. I will tell you that a lot of them are still getting used to the IC model, let's say it that way, and they're not as maybe they're not as innovative as others, but it's something to talk to about the representative of the host agency you're talking to and see and ask them, what do you see your future looking like? Are they going to go more to an IC model? Are they going to be only an IC model? If they're all IC already, do they want to be like we're 300? Do we want to be 1,000 members or 1,500 or 2,000 or whatever? How do they determine who can affiliate with them and who cannot? Those are all important things to know, because if you think about it this way, you're joining a community and you want to make sure that the community that you're joining feels right to you. And that's why I talk about fit. You need to look at their consortia too. Is their consortia a good match with you? And if it's not, so talk to them about, have you been with them a long time? Are you staying with them? Changing consortia is a big process, and it's not something most host agencies do. So if you like what you're hearing, but the consortium is a no-go because it's more mass market and you're more luxury, that can be a problem. And don't just think about where you are right now. Think about where you want to be 2 years from now, a year from now, 2 years from now, 3 years from now. Think about, as my business grows, what do I want it to look like? And is this going to be the right place for me? Because ideally, the ideal situation is when you start in the industry, you affiliate with one host and you stay there forever. That's the ideal. But if, for instance, the host that you're with, if you're fairly new and their maximum commission level is 85-15, so you're getting 85%, that's not sustainable in the long run. So you've got to think about that too, and then you're going to have to change later. Everything that I've talked about so far can pretty much be on a pro and con list. You could create a spreadsheet. You can ask 1,000 questions. You can really get down to the nitty gritty on who offers what and who does this, who does that. The issue with all that is you really need to listen to your gut too. If you're talking to somebody or if you meet people from a particular host agency and it just feels like the right place for you, listen to that. And if maybe you thought, wow, this is a really big host, and I don't really think I wanted a really big host, but this just feels right. Listen to it. Listen to that. Maybe there's a reason that you are going to want to be part of that. So listen to your gut above everything else. So now let's talk about the process. But one thing I do want to just go back and emphasize real quickly is please do your homework. Talk to multiple agencies. Talk to at least 3 so you get a sense of what it is that they're talking about. So, do your homework, focus on the fit, and now let's talk about the process. So what does it actually look like? Let's say that you've decided, okay, I've decided. I'm with this host agency now, and I'm going to move to this host agency. How does that actually work? The first thing that you need to do is get your contract out and look at it and understand what the contract that you have with your current host looks like. Many host agencies have pretty similar contracts. You can give us notice. There's this many days, you have to give us notice. This is how we handle bookings. Most agencies are not going to transfer your bookings from one to another. So let's be clear about that from the beginning. That just doesn't happen. The IATA number that the booking was made under, that belongs to that host agency. So that booking is assigned to that IATA number and it belongs to that agency. If you leave that agency, that booking still is there. There are exceptions to that, but they're few and far between. Except right now with these future travel credits and future cruise credits, we're seeing most of the vendors, I can actually only think of one that's not doing this. Most of the vendors are saying that future travel credit and that future cruise credit actually belongs to the client. So if the client wants to book with you, wherever you are, that's where we'll have it booked. If the client doesn't want to book with you and they want to go book with somebody else, they can do that. And I think that they probably realized, they being the vendors early on, that it was just going to be a nightmare to try and keep up with all these people moving because they knew that was probably going to happen. So the first thing to do is go look at your contract and see what the timeline looks like, how much notice you need to give them. Generally, host agency contracts are not going to lock you in for a year. So even though you might have signed a contract that has a duration of a year, or like our contract, you sign it and it just continues on until you say stop. Most of them are going to have some sort of an out clause. So you read it, you see, okay, this is what I need to do if I want to leave, so that you're aware of that. So you look at that, and then also sit down and look at your future bookings and figure out, and for right now, for this unusual situation, I would put your future travel credits, your future cruise credits to the side. Just look at actual bookings of dates. So let's say it's July. Let's say you've got some people traveling in October, November, December, January, February, March of next year. So for the next 6 months, you've got people scheduled to travel. And let's assume that travel is going to happen. You will still need to, in order to get paid commission on those bookings, you will still need to be affiliated with that host agency, which means that you are going to be dual affiliated. Okay. So if you are dual affiliated, that means that you're staying with the old host long enough to manage all those bookings, and the new host is where all your new bookings go. So you're dual hosted for a little while. And right now we're seeing a much shorter window of dual hosting than I would have seen this time last year. Last year, it probably would have been at least 6 months and sometimes even 18 months that it took people to go through the process. Right now, it's a much shorter window of time, and it's easier too, because there's not as many bookings to go through. Now, it might be that in that 6 month, one of your bookings it's just a hotel night and it's a $25 commission, and you may say, I'll just walk away from that one. It's not worth paying to stay. And many hosts have a process in place to to understand why it is that they do things the way they do, but they usually have a way that you can stay affiliated with them and get paid out on those bookings without being a full member, without having to pay maybe as many fees as you are. Not everybody does that, but a lot of people. So in other words, you might drop back to a lower commission level. So that's one thing. Now, one thing to keep in mind is if the host that you're looking at is affiliated with the same consortia that you're currently affiliated with, that means that you probably need to really condense the amount of time in any way possible to make that move. Because like with Virtuoso, you can't be affiliated with more than one Virtuoso host. Certainly, it's not that you have to cut it off today, start tomorrow. They understand there's a process there. But for 2 years, you can't be affiliated with 2 different Virtuoso hosts. So you'd have to kind of work through that and see what that looks like. So one of the first things that you're going to do, you've looked at your contract, you've looked at how long your bookings are, that future window. You want to make sure that you get a list of all of your clients. Now, if you've been getting leads from your host, those are typically not considered your clients. Your contract may say something different, but typically the people that you bring into the agency and you book are your clients. Any that they gave you are their clients. So you'll want to have a list of anybody that you can take with you. And they should be able to give you an export of that out of their CRM that would have, typically doesn't have their booking information, but it would have their name, address, phone, email, that kind of thing. And you may want to go through and while you still have access to those systems, sort of supplement with some notes about what this kind of person has done. And then you can do all of this. You can sign with a new agency and not tell your current agency yet. We see this especially in smaller host agencies. Sometimes there's a fear of retribution, a fear. I see a lot of times people say, you know, they're really my friend. Look, this is a business decision, and you have to make a business decision in a business way. So you want to, in any way that you can, keep this at a professional level. If the person retaliates against you or gives you a hard time, that's on them. That's their issue. That's their problem. They're acting out of fear. That's not about you. But it might be that you don't need to change host. If you identify what it is that you're looking for and what's not working for you, before you switch, go to them and say, look, your maximum commission level is 90%, and I'm selling $1 million a year. That is just not working for me. So have a conversation with them and say, what can you do? How can we work this out? And if they're smart business people, they will say, well, I'm glad you brought this up. Let's talk about it. Let's see what we can figure out. And you work together. If they're not smart business people, or if they're just reacting emotionally, they may say, that's it, can't do any better. So then you have no choice but to leave, but at least you gave it a chance. You gave them an opportunity. And then at some point, you do obviously have to notify your existing host agency. And everybody seems to want to do that at a different time in a different way. For some people do sign on with the new host and notify the old host all in the same day. Some sign on with the new host, spend a couple of months getting comfortable with the system and making new bookings, and then notify their old host. Some don't even notify their old host until that last booking travels. So they might spend 6 months, or I knew somebody who'd spent a year not making any new bookings through their old host, only servicing their existing bookings. And the old host never reached out to them to say, you were one of our top producers. What's going on? You haven't made any new bookings. And so they were really surprised when that person turned in their notice. So that's how the process generally works. And I'll be happy to answer any questions specific to the process. But let me give you a couple of final thoughts before we start digging into some specific questions. As I said earlier, please don't look for silver bullets because they don't exist. Just changing to a different host agency is not going to miraculously fix everything in your business. Now, if the issue that you had is you're not getting commissions, the right commission split, or maybe you sell a lot of Crystal Cruises and your current host is at 10% with them and the host you're changing to is at 15, yes, that's going to be a fix. That's going to solve problems. But don't look for something that's just going to suddenly make you go from $100,000 a year business to $1 million business just by switching host. That doesn't work. The other thing is there's a lot of commonalities with all hosts. Every host is going to have access to booking technology. Every host is going to give you access to vendor updates and training because the vendors definitely want to do that. Every host is going to provide you with some sort of a system in which to report your bookings so that you get paid on them. What differs from place to place is how they approach that. So some hosts that are really big have their own booking platform. And quite honestly, a lot of that is so that they can sell advertising to the different vendors. And good on them for coming up with that model. So that's one reason. But for many people, if you're doing FITs and you're working with a small provider in Provence who's going to be organizing tours for you, they don't have a booking engine. So it doesn't matter what the host has. You can't book online with that small DMC anyway. You would only be able to email them or call them, work with them that way. So don't get too carried away with some of that stuff. The other thing that I mentioned earlier that I would not get carried away with is a leads program. Leads programs, there are some people, I know people who that is the whole base of their business. And that's what they do. They get deals, they make bookings, and they churn and burn. And that's just what they want. They don't want to do the long, drawn out, asking questions, building custom itineraries. They just want to book it and move on, book it and move on, book it and move on. That's what they're interested in. So you have to know if that's the right model for you. But here's the other thing. Don't change just for cost. Right now, we see a lot of people who are saying, I'm just going to change to this other host because they're cheap or they're free or they're whatever. And I'm not going to stay there. You need to know the difference between an expense and an investment. An expense is something that costs you money that you don't get any return on. When I buy paper and print out, that's just an expense. If I am part of a training program or I'm part of something that I am getting information, support, knowledge, wisdom back, that's an investment. So changing just to say, oh, I'm going to just change and cut my costs down to nothing. Okay, you can do that, but keep in mind what you're going to miss. You're not going to be a part of that organization. You're not going to get the learning. You're not going to get the community. You're not going to get the support. All of those things that are so powerful and are one of the great reasons that we see people succeed in business, you're not going to get any of that. You're going to be one of 10,000 people and you're not going to get anything. And so just be really careful about that. And then the other thing is do really take a look at your current host and see, do I really need to change? Or is there a way that maybe the host could work with you and come up with some other options to get you what you need? Some will, some won't, but you never know unless you ask. And at least that way too, I see this a lot, and especially with women. Women are so much more relationship oriented in a lot of ways. And so that's not to say men aren't relationship oriented, but that's women are nurturers. And so a lot of times women are like, oh, they got me started in this business. They made me, they helped me learn, they helped me grow. Well, yes, and they got stuff out of it too. It's a relationship, it's an agreement. But this is a business. And when you move forward, sure, relationships are important and you need to be respectful of them, but also respectful of you and your business so that you are getting what you need. and that you are able to build your business to reach its potential. I see so many people who hold themselves back because they're afraid to say, I need to make a change and I need to do something different. And another reason why now is a great time to change is that you have time when you're not crazy busy. Imagine if you had changed in January of this year, maybe some of you did. So now you've got wave season, your busiest month of the year, and you're trying to learn a new host agency and all their systems. Now is a much smarter time to move. Of course, none of us knew this was going to happen, but it's smarter because you are able to have a little more time and a little more breathing room to get comfortable with the different systems. And then lastly, I've got a document that's it's called What's Involved with Switching Host Agencies. And let me move over a little. So if you don't already have that document and you want it, just go to gtnoffer.com and you can download it for free. And it just has some check boxes of some different things to look at, some different things to think about. And then if you want to set up a time and talk about your particular situation, I am happy to do that. You can go to talktogtn.com and there you can pick a time that works for you and make an appointment. So that's the big picture of how it works. And again, to go back to the time frame, I would say for probably most agencies right now, it's probably 3 months, 4 months of what people are managing. We've had some people who have moved who don't have any, they don't have any bookings. Everything is future travel credits, everything canceled because their clients tend to book closer in. So they just have future travel credits. And so they were able to switch pretty easily. And so that's a great thing. So it's not so much about how the switch works. That document, if you go to gtnoffer.com, that document will tell you how to do it, how to go through the process. It's more about recognizing, do I need to make a change? And if I do, why am I making a change? Always start with the why. Why am I doing this? Why am I changing? Just change for the sake of change is not going to benefit your business. Change to get more of what you need, to get more support, to get a better community, to earn more money, especially if you are in the category of, say, $750,000 and up in sales. You need to be with a host agency that's 100%, period. Now, right now, you probably don't want to pay that fee to be 100%. So is there a host agency that you can affiliate with that you can start at a lower fee and then go up to the 100%? We do that at Gifted Travel Network. So just be aware of that. So let me look through here and look through the questions. So if you've got questions, pop them in here and I'm happy to address them. I'm just going to scroll through here. I know Lisa's probably been busy as a bee answering a lot of questions because she's amazing about that. So Simona, you mentioned that for many, many reasons, you've been thinking about switching host and you haven't made a decision yet for many, many reasons too. The one thing I would encourage you not to do is to get too caught up in analysis paralysis. It's very easy to get your spreadsheet out and have all these questions and you talk to 6 different host agencies and you ask all these questions and then by the time you get to the end, you are crazy. It's like choosing paint. You can make yourself crazy trying to figure out what is exactly right. The best thing you can do is talk to the host agency, talk to people who are affiliated with that host agency, and then trust your gut. But don't let fear stop you from making a change you need to make, because that fear really will get in the way of your success. So I hope that some of what we shared today will help. So one of the questions was about a separate seller of travel ID for if you're dual hosted. In most states, that seller travel ID transfers through from that state, there's 5 states, to you. And you would just use, you don't actually have to turn it in per se, the host that you're with. So if you're making new bookings, then it's the new seller of travel. So while you're in that transition phase, you're not really using the other one. Florida is the one where you have to go online and register if you work with people who live in Florida. So even if you haven't booked them, if you're marketing to them, you have to have Florida seller of ID. So you have to go online and fill that $50 thing out. Once you make the change and your other one has expired, then you just update it with the new host information. Okay, so here's a great question. So Lisa Booth Taub wants to know, what level detailed questions can we ask as we're interviewing potential hosts? Specifically, I'd like to inquire about commission levels with preferred partners, as well as required GDS and GDS support. Absolutely, you can ask about all of those things. And those are things that I regularly get asked. What I wouldn't do is say, send me your supplier list with all of the commission levels on it. We at Gifted Travel Network don't have that posted publicly because we've signed agreements with vendors who say that you won't do that. So we don't. I know some host agencies do, but we don't. So one of the things that I would do is ask them and say, these are my top 5. What's your commission level with these top 5 vendors? So to ask them those questions, ask them what kind of relationship they have with those vendors. That's super important for you to know about. And as for the other preferred partners, I'd also ask how they handle non-preferred partners, because there are host agencies that penalize you for booking non-preferred partners. Every host agency has preferred partners. Every host agency has a list of people that they work with on a regular basis. It doesn't mean that they don't work with others. It just means this is who they've developed a relationship with. So I would encourage you to ask about the relationship, the amount of commission, ask about the GDS and the GDS support. If you're accustomed to doing air a certain way, absolutely ask those questions. They should be able and willing to answer all of those questions for you. And same thing with the BDMs, and are they geared towards working with the home-based agents? That is something that we lobby and advocate for every time we meet with a vendor. Every single time we talk to them about the importance of getting to know our people and being there for them. So remember back in the days when we used to have live in-person events, if somebody wanted to do a river cruise night, our Alma Waterways or Uniworld or another cruise line rep, they needed to be able to be there to support our advisor. Well, if they live in Georgia and they cover North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, and Florida, they're not going to fly to San Francisco to do something, but the rep who covers that area, who's in that area, should be able to. And companies, vendors are getting a lot better about this. And believe me, we are on them all the time about it. So, Sandra, I'm glad that you went to HAR and did your research, and I'm glad that we were your first choice, and I'm glad that you have done your homework. So I know that money is a factor for a lot of people, and right now, especially if you're looking at something where you think, well, I don't know if I really want to pay that amount of money out. Remember, I go back to, you need to be clear about the difference between an expense and an investment. If you invest in a new host agency right now, you are going to get a great amount of return by having ramp up time, and long term, you're going to get more return because of if it's a good fit for you. And not everybody is a good fit for you, so just make sure you're aware of that. Let's see. And a couple of you mentioned that your host is not listed on host agency reviews, which any host can list on host agency reviews. There are a lot of agencies who don't list with host agency reviews. The ones that I know of do it because they don't really want any more ICs. I think that now that this coronavirus thing has happened, a lot of agencies have laid off their employees. They're probably going to have a different perspective about ICs than they've had in the past. A lot of brick and mortar agencies don't really like ICs because you can't tell ICs what to do. You can't tell them, you need to be in the office these hours, you need to sell this product. Now, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of agencies out there who are violating these rules, but these are federal rules to meet the IC requirement as set by the IRS. So a lot of them, maybe they don't mention for that. Maybe they just don't know about host agency reviews. I don't know, but I would certainly think they would be listed, especially since anybody can be listed there for free. And Kathy, I see that Lisa answered your question about how long is it typical or permissible for dual Virtuoso agencies. There's not really a specific time frame that Virtuoso says you can't do this. It's just that any consortium, Virtuoso is just the same. They don't want one host agency going out and poaching people from another host agency, which is probably, I think, what Lisa said to you. So they just want to be aware of that. But as long as you're doing this in a reasonable amount of time and they know that you're going from one to the other, you're okay. Now, the way it works, and it works the same with other consortia too, not all, but some, is that once we set you up with a Virtuoso login, it deactivates your other login. So you can't have two with two different agencies at the same time. So Alex wants to know, what are the criteria for a supplier to become a preferred partner with GTN? One of the most important things is partner. That word, partner. We want people who are going to be a good partner with us. There are vendors out there that are in the industry and they have a good product, but maybe what they represent is not something a lot of our people sell. So we're not all luxury. We have agents who do family travel that's not luxury, but what we're not is mass market, low price drives everything kind of clients. That's not who our agents are going after. So if they don't meet that criteria, that would be one thing. If they're not a good partner, I could get my soapbox out and preach about partners in this industry that are not respectful or good partners to travel agents, and yet travel agents keep coming back and taking the abuse over and over and over again. Don't get me on my soapbox now. So that's one thing, but it's really just about, is there a good relationship there? Do they want to partner with us? Do we want to partner with them? I think we've got about 45 or 50 partners that are on our preferred list, and then we have obviously more. Lisa asked if there was an upcoming event that talks about GTN and what we offer as a host. I think really the best thing to do is to set up an appointment and we can talk one-on-one. One thing you're not going to get with, you might talk to me or you might talk to Lorianne, who's my colleague. She would be with me right now, but she's at the beach this week enjoying herself as a well-deserved vacation. And you might talk to one or the other of us, or you might end up talking to both of us. I think the reason that it's really good to have that conversation one-on-one is we can really drill down into what it is you're looking for, answer your question, and really look at your particular situation and answer your questions. What you're not going to get when you set up that appointment is you're not going to get arm twisting and a hard sell and here, try to sign the line. We're not right for everybody, and we encourage everybody who talks to us to talk to multiple host agencies. And if we are a good fit for you and you're a good fit for us, then we move forward. We only take advisors at GTN by going through that process. That's why you can't just go out and sign up, because we want to make sure that we're building a community of people who are serious about what they're doing. They're professional. They love their business and they want it to be more successful. If they're burned out or if they're just doing this to make a quick buck, first of all, this industry is not one to make a quick buck in. Anybody who's been in it a while will tell you that. So set up a time and we can talk about it. And we would love to talk to you. And Natasha, your question about diversity inclusion, absolutely. We are very focused. This is one of the things that I noticed when I first got into this industry 18 years ago, was there is not a good amount of diversity in this industry, and there should be far better diversity than there is. And it's something that internally, I think we do a really good job with our team. But I think as far as the industry goes, it's one of the things that we are involved with in campaigning to do that and to make things better and to try and reach out to bring in different voices and different ideas. And Tanya's question with being in California, are there extra things I would need to be able to do to join GTN? There's not. You just need to be aware of, which you probably already are aware if you're hosted, the rules of California, particularly if you charge professional fees. The professional, generally the interpretation, and we go by ASTA's interpretation of the California and Florida laws, that you, unless you have a full seller travel on your own in California, you cannot charge professional fees directly to the client. You can't collect money from them, but you can do it through us because we have that full seller travel license. And when you have that seller travel license, you process it through us and we process it for you. And then we charge you 3.5%, which is probably pretty close to what you're charged on your merchant account anyway. So that's the biggest regulation. And we are big advocates at Gifted Travel Network of ASTA, and the work ASTA has done and particularly did in California. A lot of our advisors were very involved in the legislation that came through California late last year and getting that changed so that travel agents were not penalized in that. There's still a lot of work to be done in California and in other states, and we're very thankful to have ASTA there to advocate for us. And we encourage our members to be members of ASTA, to donate to ASTA PAC, because that's our voice on the Hill. And I can tell you that the people who have a voice on the Hill are the ones who get represented fairly. The people who don't have a voice on the Hill often get the short end of the stick when it comes to government and regulations. So I think I've answered, it looks like I've answered a lot of your questions. Please feel free to make an appointment to set up a time to talk. We would love to talk with you one-on-one. And again, I'm happy to answer any questions about anything. You know, we can kind of talk about where you are, what your situation is, see if it's a good fit, and answer any, you know, there's probably questions that some of you had that you don't really want to put on Facebook to say, you know, that sort of thing. So we definitely would be happy to do that. Kathy, your question, do Virtuoso track completed webinars, reviews, et cetera, remain with the agent when transferring host? Generally, yes. When you transfer from one Virtuoso host to another, the Virtuoso notifies the host you're leaving to say, hey, this person is leaving and they're going to another host. As long as your original host says, yes, you can keep your reviews, then everything moves over. They do have the ability to say no, although I've never known anybody to do it. And in that case, you would have to have a new profile and sort of start over again. But as I said, I don't know anybody who's ever said no to that. So just so you're aware. Okay, so I think we've covered a lot of ground today. If I confused you, if I didn't answer your question, or you just want to go back and revisit anything, just go to talk2gtn.com, pick a time that works for you. If you don't see a time there that works for you, you can email join us at giftedtravelnetwork.com. That's join, Join, us at giftedtravelnetwork.com, and we'll put that in the comments. You can email that address and we can work with you to find a different time. And just in case any of you are not in the U.S., we only work with agents in the United States that are U.S. based. We're not set up. Their rules for Canada are completely different. And while we love Canada and would love to be there as, you know, hosting Canadian agents, we're not there yet. And Debbie, yes, it is okay in New York to charge a client service fee, and you collect it separate. You have your own merchant account, and you process it directly through that. It does not run through the host agency. Now, that's another thing to check when you're weighing host agencies. Some take a split of your service fees. We don't. Many don't, but some do. So ask those questions. Thank you, everybody, very much for being here today. It was wonderful to have you. I hope you got some questions answered. Definitely let us know if we can be of service to you. We would be happy to. And as you move forward, we are definitely wanting everybody to have a safe time. And we're so looking forward to the return of travel. We are confident in the future of the travel industry. The comeback is going to be far bigger than the setback, and there's going to be lots of people looking for great professionals. So get your name out there and make sure that you are serving your clients, communicating with them now, so that when they're ready to book, you'll be there. All right. Have a great day, everybody. Goodbye.